Do you remember a couple years back whenever the Diary of the Wimpy Kids movies were coming out and they recast Roderick and everybody on social media started using the hashtag not my Roderick, hashtag not my people we made on vacation? Hi, my name is Chloe Jane and welcome to my channel where we talk about books and we watch movies and series, and today we have an exciting video because we are breaking down People We Meet on Vacation, the book versus the film. And I have a lot to say, so buckle in. Last week we actually did a reaction video to People We Meet on Vacation, so feel free to go watch that if you want. I want to go ahead and give a disclaimer that I'm probably going to be very picky, very critical in this video, and that's only because this book is one of my favorite books, so I literally picked everything apart. Right off the bat, one of my biggest issues with this film was how it looked visually. I literally, the first couple of seconds within watching it, I said, okay.
Of yourself.
I already hate the look of this. Like everything. It looks like a very Netflix film. You've probably heard the term Netflix lighting, which is quite literally what this film has. And I am so sick of it. I'm so sick of everything looking super dark, super warm toned, and just so neutral. Where are the colors? But specifically why I hate this lighting for this film is because it's a rom-com about best friends who travel the world together and then fall in love. So why is it so dark and so moody? I feel like a lot of films do this now because they want to look more cinematic, but it's also like time and place. Like you did it at my birthday dinner, like time and place. This is a rom-com. Like some of these shots are beautiful and stunning, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, how does this relate to the story? I would understand if this story was a little bit darker. Maybe if this was a dark romance, then I would be like, yes, this really fits the tone of this film, but this is a fun, lighthearted movie. So specifically with the lighting for the film, I would have loved to see something similar to the film Monte Carlo. This is also a lighthearted movie. There's romance in it and there's a lot about travel. And I think that a similar look to this would have fit this story so much better. And when I was reading this book, when I'm envisioning it in my mind, what I wanted it to look like on the screen is like you're scrolling through a travel influencer's Instagram. Like, I want the bright colors, I want the picture perfect destinations, I want the super blue water. Let's lighten things up and romanticize it. Okay, sticking with the visuals, let's talk about Poppy's appearance on screen. When I found out that they were adapting this book, I really, really wanted them to make Poppy blonde, because she's blonde in the book, but I can understand why Emily Bader probably didn't want to dye her hair, but I wish she was blonde, and there's really no significance behind her being blonde. I just, in my head, when I think of like travel influencers, specifically from like the 2016 era, I always think of like long blonde hair, but not like perfectly bleached and toned blonde hair, like messy, beachy, golden blonde hair, maybe even like a balayage, just like messy, like beachy vibes, like almost surfer vibes in a way. And I really wish that they would have done this with Poppy. And then in the present scenes have like a short haircut, which is what she had in the book. But I can understand why they didn't want to make her blonde, and it's really not that big of a deal, so I get it. But what I don't get is her costumes. The costumes in this film, I don't want to be mean, but it literally pissed me off. And every time I've been online and I've been like scrolling through social media about this film, everybody's like, yeah, the costumes look so good. And I'm like, guys, did we read the same book? Did we read the same book? No shade, no tea to the costume designer, but did they read this same book? So literally none of the outfits in this film looked like Poppy. Poppy's style in the book is described as wearing bright colors and patterns. Her friend describes her as 1960s Parisian, and she wears a lot of vintage clothes. So I expected going into this film to see a lot of like bold vintage inspired outfits, but did we see that? Not really. This white outfit that she wore to the airport pissed me off so much because it's literally the exact opposite of Poppy's style. In my opinion, it looks like she's dressed to go to the Hamptons. It's giving like old money, Ralph Lauren, like that kind of vibe, and that's not Poppy. Poppy is like funky, bold, retro, vintage. And then this outfit when they're in New Orleans, I was so mad when I saw like a leaked behind the scenes of when they were filming and I saw her wearing this outfit because this is not her style. I guess you could argue that it's vintage in the way that it looks like she's dressed for a disco, but it literally looks like she got this outfit from Forever 21 or Pretty Little Thing pre-rebrand, and it looks like she's going to a Euphoria themed party from 2020. Like, I don't understand, how does this look like Poppy at all? It doesn't. And then I saw an interview where the costume designer was like inspired by like a space cowboy or something for this outfit, but why? One, that's not Poppy style. Two, that has nothing to do with New Orleans. Nobody dresses like that unless they're going on like a bachelorette trip. Three, there was no reason or rhyme in the script for her to be dressed like that. However, I will say I think the wig I liked the wig. We will be talking about that later, but I did like the wig. And I can tell that they were kind of inspired by like vintage looks, like with this red flower cutout dress that she wore at the wedding. But the problem is that this dress was so trendy. So if she wears this dress that's super trendy, it defeats the whole point, because her character's style is all about like standing out and like wearing like very out there outfits. Some of the looks that I did like were the green dress that she wore to the rehearsal dinner. I think this is really pretty. This color is a good color for her and one that her character would wear. And I'm glad that they changed it from the jumpsuit, because in the book she wears a jumpsuit and I'm like, a jumpsuit to a wedding? So I like this change to this dress. I think it's really pretty, and I also think it's very memorable. Like, it's especially because that's the scene that they get together. So also this outfit that she wears in Tuscany with the yellow dress and the matching headband, I think that's very her. I also like this one piece that she wears in Tuscany. It kind of gives that retro vibe. And then also the outfit that she's wearing when she meets Alex for the first time, I think that kind of has like a boho vibe, and I think that also works for her character. So overall, I can see that they kind of were inspired by like some retro looks, but I think they needed to lean way more into it. When Alex meets her for the first time, he literally says that he thought she was wearing a costume because that's how out there her outfit was. So this is how I personally would have styled Poppy. I would have pulled a lot of inspiration from the 60s and the 70s, specifically like 60s beachwear, especially for the present day scenes when they're in Palm Springs. We'll get to that later, but when they're in Palm Springs, I would have incorporated a lot of bold colors, green, orange, because that's like the colors of the book. A lot of bold patterns, and then also a lot of matching pieces, because I feel like that's very retro, specifically very 60s. And then also a lot of hair accessories too, to give her that retro look. Another thing that I didn't like visually is how they didn't really do anything to age the characters down. This story takes place over like 9 years of them knowing each other. So we should see a progression in their haircuts or their style or something visually to distinguish that they're growing up, and also that we are in the present day scene or we're in a flashback. That's why I liked in the book she had a different haircut, because it was an easy way to distinguish, hey, we're in the present, we're not in a flashback. I think also for Alex, I probably would have given him glasses in the present day scenes just to kind of show he's getting older, but also to lean more into his nerd, like, teacher side, because that's a big part of his character. He's like kind of nerdy, quiet, shy. But I feel like for Alex's look, we didn't really see anything to kind of show that, in my opinion. He just kind of was there. I want you to look at this shot of Alex where we're in the present day, they're at the airport, and then we cut to him. This is supposed to be 8 years ago, and he looks the exact same. Like, I just feel like they didn't do anything to make him look older or younger or different at all. Like, it's been 8 years. We gotta do something. Give him a different haircut. Something. While we're on the topic of them not aging them down, I noticed when they're at Poppy's house back when they're going on their first trip. So this is like, I think 8 years ago. Basically, Poppy's mom gives Alex beta blockers for his flying anxiety. And the problem I see with this is that I didn't even start hearing about beta blockers until like 2 years ago. Like, I don't think, I'm sure they've been around for forever, but they didn't start becoming like relevant and common knowledge until like a couple years ago when they started to trend. So the fact that this is supposed to take place 8 years ago when beta blockers weren't really relevant, and now you're throwing it in there saying, take these beta blockers. That's a tiny detail, but it took me out of the world when I was watching it. I said, wait, didn't beta blockers just become a thing like yesterday? Like, this is supposed to be 8 years ago. Okay, now I'm just gonna kind of walk through the film and point out what was different from the book and what I didn't like and what I did like. So we're gonna start off with the opening scene where Poppy is writing for her job and she's explaining how she feels about traveling. I actually highly dislike this opening scene because the whole joke is that she's talking about everything that she loves about traveling, but really she's pointing out everything that she doesn't like about it. Specifically, I hate the part where she says, on vacation, you strike up conversations with fellow travelers. And then it shows her like butting into these girls' conversations and then being like unfriendly to her and like kind of not paying attention to her. Basically insinuating that travel is lonely, which I hate so much because the whole thing in the book is that the reason Poppy really loves travel is because of the people and the connections she meets when she travels to all these new places. That's her favorite part. So much so that in the epilogue of the book, she ends up starting to write about locals in New York because she loves human connection and she loves talking to new people, and that's what she wants to do. So the fact that the film frames it in a way to where she thinks traveling is really lonely is just crazy because that's the exact opposite of what it is in the book. And then also this part about her like being alone and slipping in the shower and dying, I know it was supposed to be funny. I didn't think it was funny. I thought it was stupid. And then we go right into the next scene where she's talking to her boss and she asks her boss, "Don't you ever think that travel is lonely?" And her boss is like, "Girl, you literally write about vacations for a living." Like, and I think that this is a terrible introduction to Poppy's character because the first time we see her really talk about her job or traveling, she's talking about how much she hates it and how lonely she finds it, when that's not the case in the book. The whole thing is she loves to travel. It's her passion, but because she's reached this goal within her career, she has no purpose, so she's depressed. And in the book, she's having this conversation with her friend and she doesn't understand why she's so depressed and sad, and her friend tells her, "You were hungry, you had a goal, you were working towards something, you had a purpose, but you've reached it. That's why you're upset." And I actually really wish we could have explored that theme because I do think it is an interesting theme. I think it's relatable. And I don't know, I would have liked to see that. And then we get to see a little bit of Poppy's life in New York. And I will say I love the details in her apartment with the dead plants, the empty fridge, and then the stacked up mail. I think that's a nice little touch to show that she's never home and she's always traveling. When she has this phone call with Alex's brother David, I think that in this phone call somewhere we should have established how long it's been since she's talked to Alex and just how bad their falling out was. David tells Poppy that Alex and Sarah broke up, and when she says she didn't know that, he says something like, "I knew things were weird between you guys, but I didn't know they were that weird." I really don't like that line because to me that does not imply that they have not spoken to each other in 2 years. Like, it feels very casual as like, oh wait, I didn't know things were that bad between you, when David is Alex's brother and Poppy is one of the most important people in his life. So Alex would have told David how bad things were between him and Poppy, and if they weren't speaking and hadn't spoken in 2 years. I think a better way of establishing how bad things are between Poppy and Alex is if on this phone call David is almost like sneaking behind Alex's back to invite her to the wedding, to show like things are not good between them, but I still want you at this wedding, and he's aware of that, so that us as the audience can kind of pick up like, oh, things are really bad between those two. Okay, this is probably my biggest issue with this film. We changed the wedding destination and the present day location from Palm Springs to Barcelona. When he said that wedding was in Barcelona, I was so mad.
Get your ass to Barcelona.
Barcelona! Barcelona, no! I loved having Palm Springs be the location for them and the present day scenes for multiple reasons. Number one, visually, I think Palm Springs is just such a fun location to play around with because you have all of like the pastel colors. You also have those retro vibes which kind of lean in with Poppy's personal style, and also Palm Springs to me is so 2016 coded, which would lean into like the 2016 travel influencer aesthetic. Like, I just feel like visually it could have been so fun to play around with. Number two, I think it's a great location for this story because Palm Springs is like a picture perfect destination, but it's literally in the middle of a desert. So yeah, things are gonna go wrong, especially when they go in like the middle of summer, in the middle of the heat. things are gonna go wrong. In the book, when they go to Palm Springs, Poppy is trying to recreate these trips that they used to go on, and she's trying to make everything like it used to be, but everything keeps going wrong. And yeah, I think Palm Springs was just a good location to show that. And I thought they were going to at least attempt to do the same thing in Barcelona, but like they didn't. Nothing went wrong. I mean, a couple of things went wrong, but not really. Like we barely saw them on this trip, which we'll get into later. And if I had to guess why they changed the location of Palm Springs to Barcelona, I would assume that it is because of cost, because filming in California is really expensive. So I looked it up, and their two main filming locations were in New Orleans and Spain. I think the real reason was because it was too expensive to film in California, but still, I wanted to see them in Palm Springs. And then we have the scene where Poppy and Alex meet for the first time, and I thought this scene was done so well. I love it. It's so fun. I love that Poppy is just super chatty, and she's not letting Alex get like any words in. I love the contrast between them, and it shows off the bat how different they are. I think my only complaint is that Alex really appears more grumpy and sassy than he does quiet, shy, nerdy. Like in this car scene in the film, he's like genuinely so aggravated with Poppy, but in the book, he's more just shocked at how bold she is, and like he doesn't even know how to respond really. But something that really bothered me is that they're in traffic, she's eating it, he slams on the brakes, she spills her food, and then they cut to the next scene and it's just magically cleaned up. Hello, where did it go? I feel like it would have made a lot more sense if when she spilled her food, that's why they then pull over to the gas station to go get stuff to clean it up. That would have made so much more sense. I think what they could have done is they're not getting along, things are awkward, she spills the food, they go to the gas station, she locks them out of the car, they have to stay the night, they bond a little bit whenever they talk about their traumas or whatever in the hotel room, and then the next day when they're driving back down, that's when they start getting along and they start talking about all the things they love and they hate, and they start bonding, and that's when they kind of become friends. For the film, I liked that they made it to where they had to spend the night together, because I feel like otherwise it would have been extremely hard to show their friendship throughout college, and whenever Poppy comes home to Linfield, I feel like that would have been super hard. So I think making the change of having them spend the night at this motel together and that be the way that they kind of form a friendship, I like that. However, something that bothered me so much in this film is the fact that when Poppy and Alex meet, Alex already has a girlfriend. He's already dating Sarah. When in the book, he doesn't date Sarah for a while. Him and Poppy become friends, and then he gets this crush on Sarah, and he's like telling Poppy about Sarah, and she's like encouraging him to go for it, but they don't start dating for a couple years. Why does this matter? He's taken. So it's not even a thought that they would be interested in each other romantically, which bothers me so much, because the whole thing is the reason they become friends in the first place is because they are so different. That's the whole point of this book, is that they love each other, but they're so different. They want different things in life, and that is why they stay friends for so long and don't try to pursue things romantically. So I feel like having Alex's girlfriend be the reason that establishes them in a friendship and not anything more is like, it goes against the main theme of the book, and it also is kind of like lazy writing to me in a way, because it feels like they just need an excuse for them not to be able to be together. Also, I know there's a lot of discourse about how from Sarah's point of view, Poppy is literally any girlfriend's worst nightmare. Like having your boyfriend be secretly in love with his girl best friend the whole time, like that's literally any girl's worst nightmare, which I agree, yes. But in my opinion, I think it's a lot worse if he's already in this committed relationship with Sarah and then decides to become friends with this girl and start going on trips with her, than like it was in the book whenever him and Poppy were already friends and they were already going on trips together before him and Sarah ever became a thing. So I don't know, like that's way worse to me how they did it in the film, and it makes Alex kind of a red flag. Okay, well now we're going back to the present scenes in the film. So we're going to talk about this phone call with Alex. So whenever I was reading the book, I was really scared that they were going to make Rachel's character in the film highly annoying because she is supposed to be an influencer, and I was so scared that they were going to take the influencer thing and run with it. Thankfully, they didn't do that. Influencers in general weren't really mentioned in this film, which I'm actually very thankful of. But anyways, to my surprise, Rachel's character was like barely there. We saw her for one scene and that was it. She had really nothing, and she barely even spoke either. So honestly, I don't like that Poppy calls Alex with Rachel right there after their workout class. I wish that this was happening while she was alone in her apartment, because this is supposed to be a big deal to her. So I don't like that she just casually is like, I'll just call him after our workout class, because it makes it seem like it's not that big of a deal. But in reality, it is a big deal because they haven't talked in 2 years. I think it would have worked better if we had a similar shot like in the beginning of the film where she's staring at his contact and she's thinking about calling him and she's about to hit the call button and then she decides not to, but then like her finger slips and she calls him anyways and then he answers. I think that would have worked so much better, because that's similar to what happens in the book. Is she's thinking about texting him, she types stuff out, she deletes it, she types it out again, and then she accidentally hits send and she's like, oh no, what did I do? But then he responds and she's like, oh, okay. I think that would have worked better, because then we would have seen her hesitating to call him not once but twice in the film, to show just how much this means to her and just how nervous she is to call him and talk to him. And then in the film, Alex just answers. It's literally in a wide shot and Alex casually answers and he's like, hello. Like, this, they haven't talked in 2 years. Can we make this a little bit more important to these two characters? Like, he just answered like it was nothing. Like, they're still on talking terms. They haven't talked in 2 years. Why did we not have a close-up of him seeing his reaction to Poppy calling, him being a little bit confused, shocked, but then also like kind of nervous to answer, and then he answers and he's like, hello? Like, why did we not see that this was a big deal that she was calling him? Which, back to my point when I said they didn't establish how bad this friendship falling out was and how long it's been, you need to establish that things are bad between them. They have not talked in 2 years. And then they're on the phone and she says she can't make it to the wedding and he says, yeah, that's probably for the best. Like, why is he so damn sassy in this film? Like, I want to see Alex hopeful that things might work out between them. Whenever he's on the phone, I want him to be excited that she's calling him. I want him to be like, oh, maybe things could work out between us. Why is he so sassy towards her? Does he hate her? Does he hate her? It seems like he hates her in this film, like genuinely. Okay, at this point in the film, this is when I realized, oh, we've lost the plot. No, we've literally lost the plot, because this is whenever Poppy says to Alex, she lies and says, oh, actually, my work trip is in Barcelona. And he says, oh, okay, cool, so you're gonna come then? She said, yeah, I'll be at the wedding. There was no mention of a trip before the wedding. In the book, she calls Alex and she says, hey, I'm going on this work trip in Palm Springs. It happens to be the location of your brother's wedding. Would you want to extend your trip to your brother's wedding and come with me on my work trip, and we can stay a couple days and then we'll go to your brother's wedding together? So the whole thing is that they go on a whole trip together before they go to his brother's wedding, which that is literally the main plot of that's literally the main plot of the whole book, is that Poppy is trying to take Alex on this trip to make things like their old trips and repair their friendship and make things be how they used to be. So the whole premise of them going on vacation together in the present day is completely removed from the film. Anyways, they run into each other at the airport on accident, and I hate how awkward things are between them. Like, things are so, which, like, yeah, that's obviously intentional, but in the film, because they've agreed to go on this trip together, they can at least fake like things are okay with them. They're at least pretending like they're still friends, and they're like, they kind of can fake like things are okay. And in the film, she's standing there and she's like, I don't know what to do, I feel awkward, like I wish I could just hug you right now. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, thank God, because in the book they hug and it's like a really cute moment of them finally reuniting. But then they don't hug in the film. They don't hug. They just stand there and we cut to a flashback scene. I'm like, can we please, like, please, like, can we see that Alex actually likes her? Like, it literally seems like he hates her in this film, and it's pissing me off. Like, please, please. Then they go on their first trip together 8 years ago, and I like this moment of Alex reading the itinerary, and then Poppy's like, forget the itinerary, like, let's just wing it. And she says something about how she doesn't want to have the same vacation as everybody else. And I really love that because obviously it shows how different her and Alex are, but also it's kind of ironic because she's saying she doesn't want to follow an itinerary or have the same vacation as everybody else does, but her whole job ends up becoming writing for a travel magazine, to where she literally tells people how to spend their vacations. I love them at the fire pit, and then they're both checking up on each other. I thought that was so cute, and that does happen in the book as well. I also do like the skinny dipping scene. I think that was really funny. It was such a fun way to get Alex into his vacation mode or whatever. And then I love when Poppy finds him outside the tent and he's naked. She asks where his clothes are and he says, my clothes are out at sea. That's so funny. That's so funny. And then she says, you're ripped? Love that. They ate with that. Okay, back to the present day. Whenever they're in the car together and Poppy finds out that Alex's grandmother has died, I felt like this needed to be way more emotional. And in the book, I think they're at a restaurant whenever she finds this out, and it's like really emotional for her because, I mean, this is a point where she's realizing she literally doesn't know him anymore, or she's not a part of his life anymore, so it's really emotional. She has to turn away from him because she's tearing up. But it leads to a great conversation between them, and it's like one of the first time that they've actually opened up about their feelings and how far they've drifted from each other. So it's a really great heartfelt moment between the two of them, but we don't see any of that in the film, and which, okay, that's fine if we didn't get the conversation after, but I still would have liked to see this be way more emotional for her. Like, I really wanted to see this affect her. Also, in the film, whenever they get to the Airbnb and they figure out that the air conditioner doesn't work, this really doesn't make that much sense, because the whole thing is she lies to Alex, tells him that this is a work trip and that they're paying for everything, but they're not. So she's paying for everything out of pocket, and so she's having to pay for this really cheap Airbnb, this really cheap car. But in the film, since her work actually was paying for this trip, if the AC didn't work, then she could just get a new Airbnb or get a new hotel and charge it to her work card. Like, so the logistics aren't really lining up, to be completely honest. Now we're gonna jump to the New Orleans trip. The concept of your honeymoon being in New Orleans is so funny to me. That's genuinely so funny. And then the concept of them faking being newlyweds to get free po' boys is so funny to me. Guys, a po' boy is a sandwich. So the concept of them like running this con of being fake newlyweds to get a free sandwich is so funny to me. As somebody from Louisiana, that's so funny. Like, and then I love the whole role-playing scene and then the dance scene, and they dance to the song that Alex hates with the saxophone. It's so good, and I love the line whenever she says, I love it when you get weird, and he says, I'm only weird when I'm with you. That is so good. Okay, now let's talk about the Norway scene. So in the film, it was very cute. It was cute. He showed up to take care of her, but we were missing a lot. In the book, he takes care of her, but they do way more than that. Like, they get really close and intimate, and there's so much sexual tension between them, and none of that was in the film, like, at all. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the wedding scenes in the film. So I'm really confused and really mad as to why we didn't have any scenes with Alex's family and Alex's father. In the book, we have a scene where Poppy's literally standing up to Alex's father because he starts basically like shutting down when he's talking about Alex's mom, and Poppy's like, you need to like get it together, like, you're here for your son's wedding, you need to pull it together. And she puts him in his place, because in that moment she looks over at Alex and realizes how much he had to take on, how much emotional baggage he had to take on from his father, how he had to be the one that pulled it together for his family. And so I really like that scene because it gave us a look into Alex's character and why he is the way that he is. So I don't understand why we didn't have even like just a short brief moment of that in the film would have told us so much more about Alex, especially since we have scenes with both his brother and his dad right there. Why didn't we see anything with that? Okay, so then this scene in the film where Poppy tells Alex, I wish we could just go back to the way things were before Tuscany. I just feel like it does not work as well as it does in the book, because in the book we've literally seen them on this trip together in the present scenes where she's literally trying to force their friendship to be how it used to be. So that line hits so much harder because she's like, I just wish it could go back. And he's like, I know you wish it could go back. He doesn't actually say that, but that's the energy. And in the film, when Alex says, we can't go back to that, it just seems like yet again he's rejecting her. It feels like all of the feelings were one-sided and were coming from Poppy, because this whole film we haven't really seen feelings on Alex's side. And in the book, whenever Poppy says this to him, Alex like yells, like he's frustrated, and he says we cannot go back to that because he wants to be with her. He agreed to go on this trip because he thought that she was ready to finally like confront her feelings and that they would be together. Okay, so now let's talk about the Tuscany trip in the film. I love the location, first of all. I think this is beautiful, gorgeous. Second of all, I love how they handled the whole couples trip thing. I love how they showed that they were each with their own type or the lifestyle that they wanted to choose. So Trey and Poppy were together. They were similar travelers, wanderers, whatever. Alex and Sarah were together. They wanted to, settle down, create a home together. So I love how they showed that. Now let's get into the pregnancy scare in the film. This to me was the biggest change from the book. I actually got mad when I watched this because I said, what are we doing? Poppy thinks she's pregnant. She texts Alex to come help her. They take a pregnancy test and she finds out it's negative, and then they have like this moment where they get really close to each other and she leans in to kiss him and he shuts it down. This is so different from the book, it's not even funny. In the book, whenever Alex finds out that she could possibly be pregnant, he starts freaking out. And whenever she takes the test and it's negative, he's so relieved, but at the same time, he breaks down. He literally is freaking out. He starts crying, and this is a huge deal to him because his mother died while giving birth. And during childbirth, his mother passed away. So obviously, which they completely omitted from the film, obviously, yeah, this would freak him out because this is a moment where he realizes, oh my gosh, I could lose Poppy. And so he starts freaking out, and it's this really intense moment between them where it's very clear to both of them that their feelings for each other are way deeper than friendship. They need each other, and it's honestly unfair to their partners that they're even doing this. But ultimately, in this scene in the book, they don't kiss, they don't cross any sort of lines, they kind of pull themselves together, they realize they have partners in the other rooms, and they're like, okay, we're not gonna do this, and they walk away. In the film, that's not the case. Whenever Poppy tells Alex, there's no sense of urgency, there's no sense of panic of, there's nothing. He literally asks her, why isn't Trey here? So sassy. I'm not even kidding, this man, I think he hates her in this film. He's like, why am I here? Why did you tell me this? Maybe because you're her best friend, you're the most important person to her in the world, and yeah, she probably should be telling her partner this, but she's freaking out and she trusts you. That's why she's telling you. Ugh. And then whenever they find out that it's negative, he has no sort of reaction. There's no reaction of him having this relief of oh my gosh, thank God she's not pregnant. I don't want her to end up with Trey. I don't want her to have this baby and get married to Trey or whatever. He's just chilling. And obviously they didn't do anything about his mother and how she died, so that's not a reaction from him either. So I'm just okay, what are we, pack it up. The whole point of this pregnancy scare was to show how much they had feelings for each other, and you didn't even do that. I mean, you showed it with Poppy, kind of, but Alex had no reaction. And then when they have this moment where they get really close and they almost kiss, Alex backs away and he says, what was that? As if she was the only one who did it. You were leaning in too. Don't even put that all on me. He's so sassy to her. Why are you blaming her? And why are you making it seem like all of the feelings are one-sided? In fact, this entire film, it feels like her feelings are one-sided. It feels like Alex genuinely just wants things to be platonic, and all the feelings are coming from Poppy's side, which it's not. In the book, it's literally flipped. Like, they both have feelings, but Alex is the one who really wants to be with her. Alex is the one who's yearning, and Poppy's the one who's like, no, we need to be friends. No, we need to be friends. No, we need to be friends. So that's crazy to me that he does not like her in this film, like, or at least he doesn't show it. And in the book, this is not the trip that breaks them up. They have a whole nother trip after that, and I loved this trip so much. I wish this was in the film. So after this pregnancy scare, they both break up with their partners because they realize, like, it's not fair for me to be feeling this way and still be with this person. So they both break up with their partners and they go on this trip to Croatia. This is the first trip since the Norway trip where they're single. They're both single again. And there is a R&R photographer with them, and he won't leave them alone. Like, they cannot get any alone time together. They can't even have any conversations together alone because this R&R photographer won't leave them alone. So one night they all drink a bunch of wine, they all get really drunk, and the R&R photographer goes to his hotel room and falls asleep. So then Alex finally sneaks away from the photographer and he sneaks into Poppy's hotel room. And it's such a fun scene. It's so funny because they're both drunk and they're so happy that they finally got away from this photographer, and they're just like laughing. They're dying laughing because they're both drunk. But then it turns into them making out. And I love any scenes where it's like drunk confession scenes, so I love this scene so much because they're making out, and then Alex stops them and he's like, no, we can't do this, not like this. And it's literally the scene from New Girl whenever they dare Nick and Jess to kiss, and Nick's like, no, not like this. Then Poppy thinks that Alex is rejecting her, so she says, you're right, this is a mistake, we don't need to do this, we're friends. She immediately shuts him down, and then he's like, wait, no, that's not what I meant. That is what causes their falling out, is this like miscommunication. So in the film, it just seems like Alex is just rejecting her. It doesn't seem like he's like, no, wait, not like this. And then also in the book, after the Tuscany trip, he buys a ring for Sarah, but he ultimately realizes, like, this is not fair what I'm doing to her, so then he breaks things off with her. But in the film, the next morning he proposes to Sarah, which is so crazy because it literally makes it seem like Alex has no feelings towards Poppy. It makes it seem like Alex genuinely just wanted to be friends. Then they're having this conversation about how they want different things in life, and this is what causes their fallout. But I don't know. It just, none of it felt intense enough to make them stop talking for 2 years. And then we go back to the present day scene whenever Alex follows her into the Airbnb and he confesses his love to her. But to me, yet again, this scene feels very lackluster because we haven't seen Alex's feelings towards Poppy this entire film. Like, we haven't seen any of it, so it's just, it seems random to me, honestly. It's like, oh wait, you actually did have feelings for her? And then they're in the rain and they both confess their feelings to each other. And I will say, I love this line in the film. I don't think this was in the book, but I love this line in the film whenever Poppy says, I love you to Alex, and then Alex says, since when? And Poppy says, probably always. I love that line so much. It's so cute. And I know some people are upset because apparently the scene that they filmed was way more intense, but they did screen tests, and so they like made it way, they watered it down. But I don't know, I don't really care. Because, like, you can always read the book. Like, if you want smut, like, it's right, go to the book. Like, I'm not surprised that they watered it down in the film. I don't really care about that. I just wish, yet again, we had that scene in Norway where we see them get really close and intimate with each other, just to show that things were building up over time. The sexual tension was building up over their friendship. And I think the Norway scene where they get really close and intimate, I think they actually did film that, but they also cut that because of the screen tests, which, so interesting. Like, who was in that testing room? And then we have the scene at the wedding where Alex is freaking out and Poppy's like, chill, like, it's gonna be fine, like, we don't have to figure everything out right now, like, it's fine. And yet again, we haven't seen, like, we've barely seen that Alex has feelings towards her this whole film. So once they get together and he starts freaking out because she's being so casual about it, I'm like, why are you freaking out? It feels like you just realized you had feelings for her. But had it been like it was in the book, where it's very clear that he wanted to be with her, like, from the beginning, and she was the one that was rejecting him and friend zoning him, yeah, that would make a lot more sense as to why he's so upset, because yet again, she's being so cavalier with his feelings. Also, this confrontation scene in general was just done so much better in the book. First of all, it takes place at the airport, so they literally have to rush so they don't miss their flights, and Alex is literally about to board, so they're having this scene where they're talking about what happens next as he's about to board. So one, there's like a time limit, so there's some urgency to it. And number two, whenever Alex says, you don't know what you want, which he says in the film as well, it makes so much more sense in the book, because we've been seeing him in the present scenes try to choose between getting back together with Sarah or choosing to be with Poppy and starting a life with Poppy. And he's like trying to pick between the two, so he's frustrated. And so yeah, it makes sense when he's like, you don't know what you want, and he's mad. And then also when they keep throwing out the line in the film, you don't know what you want, towards Poppy, I feel like it makes less sense, because in the book we really get to see her struggle with this like rut that she's in, and feeling like she has no purpose, and trying to figure out her career and what she wants, like what she wants in life. It makes sense because we see that in the book. In the film, we barely see that. Yeah, we see that she's going through some things with her career and what she wants in life, but it's just, we don't see enough. Number three, in this scene in the book, Alex then, as they're having this argument, Alex finds out that Poppy lied about the trip. So then that takes it to a whole nother level, because now he feels betrayed because she's been lying to him about this whole work trip. And then number four, the kicker of it all, is that she then tells him that she's been going through this rut in her personal life, and she feels like she has no purpose within her job, and she's been trying to figure things out. And so then he interprets this as, oh, so you are just trying to use me as like a vacation, or you're trying out new things and what you want in life, and this isn't serious to you. I've been thinking about this our whole friendship. I've been thinking about how much I want to be with you, and you're just like casually trying this out with me. So all of those things combined is what really just makes the argument really bad, and what makes them stop talking. And then in the film, they have this scene with Sarah where Poppy runs into her at the airport, and it's supposed to be this scene of like closure with Sarah. They're like talking things out, and Sarah is now a flight attendant, and this confused me so much, because the whole thing in the book is that Poppy and Sarah were so different, and that's why Poppy kept comparing herself to Sarah, is because Alex chose the girl that was the most similar to him. So the fact that they made Sarah become a flight attendant, they were basically saying that she was really just similar to Poppy this whole time, and she wanted the same things as Poppy does. But that defeats the whole point that was trying to be made in the book, of that they're different people, and she represents the different life that Alex wants to choose that's different than Poppy. Like in the book, the scene between Sarah and Poppy happens at the school, and she runs into her at the school because she's a teacher there. And they see eye to eye a little bit, but I don't know. I was just really confused. I think the reason they made this change in the film is to make Poppy look like a better person, because she, in a way, helped Sarah find herself. Or like, I don't know. And then we have the love confession scene in the film where Poppy's running, chasing Alex down, and she hates running. And I actually really like this change. In the book, Poppy basically shows up to the school to find Alex, and he's not there, but then she shows up to where he's hanging out with all of his co-workers, and that's where she makes his confession. And also I think for the film specifically, it's fun to see visually like her chasing him down, so I liked the running scene. I did. I think that was really good. For the most part, I love this whole scene where they finally confess their feelings and she's ready to be with him. The only thing that bothers me a little bit is that it really does put all the pressure on her, like this is her choice, which is accurate to the book. It really does come down to her choice and her having to figure out what she wants, and her choosing to get over her fear of Linfield to be with Alex. But the thing about the film that bothers me is, yet again, it feels like this was all one-sided, and like Alex wasn't really yearning for her or pining for her. So it just feels a little off to me because it's like it doesn't feel like it was her choice because it felt like he was the one that was friend zoning her. So it's, I don't know, it's just a little weird. I love this shot with them kissing in the middle of Ohio, aka New Orleans, and just in the middle of Linfield, the place that she hates the most. I want to get into what my biggest issues with this film were. So going into this film, I was really scared at how they were going to do the inside jokes. One thing that I'm really scared about and don't know how they're gonna execute it is the inside jokes between Poppy and Alex. Emily Henry is so good at writing banter, and I mean, like, for the most part, the banter between them was really good in this film. But my favorite part specifically about this book is the inside jokes. They have so many inside jokes in this film, and as the reader, you feel like you're a part of the joke. And I think it's just such a fun aspect of friendship is the inside jokes that you create with somebody, especially over like years and years and years. So that was my favorite part about this book, is that with each trip, they keep adding all these new inside jokes and memories, and then in the future trips, they'll reference back to old inside jokes, and it's just so fun and it feels so real. I wish that a lot of the comedic moments within the film would be redirected and focused on the inside jokes to show how deep their friendship is. And in the film they tried to reference these inside jokes, but I just don't think they were explained well enough. Like, it more just felt like a reference for the readers only. So if you're a reader, you would get it, you would know what they were talking about, but they didn't explain it to the audience. Like the thing with the sculpture and the "it speaks to me," in the book, the whole thing is that there's this woman that's trying to sell them this really expensive art that's like $20,000 or something, and they're like, who has money for that? And she's like, when art speaks to you, you just make it work. In the film, Poppy says, this speaks to me, and she's being dead ass, and she takes that sculpture home with her. She says, yeah, you're coming home with me. And then they never really reference the joke again. The joke dies. Even like a small way to incorporate the inside joke is during the water taxi scene, whenever Alex says to Poppy, you want to jump his bones, she could have been like, he speaks to me. Like, I think that's such an easy, small way to just reference the joke that you just set up 2 seconds ago. In the book, whenever they're in New Orleans, they have this inside joke when one of them doesn't want to do something, they'll scream, but theme matters. And I really wish we would have seen that. I can tell they tried to do it in the film, but I just don't think it was done well. They briefly mention it whenever they're ordering drinks, so it's just kind of snuck in there. But this is how I think they could have incorporated the theme matters joke. I think they could have initially set this joke up whenever they get the grenades, which are like these popular drinks in New Orleans that everybody gets. So I think Poppy could have been like, Alex, we have to get it. And he's like, no, I don't know. And then she's like, Alex, theme matters. And then he could be like, what theme? And she could be like, the theme of New Orleans. And then he's like, okay, fine, we'll get these grenades. And then this montage that they do in the film where they're like walking around New Orleans doing all these things, I think they could have in this montage be like holding things up to each other and being like, come on, theme matters, but theme matters just throughout this little montage. So I personally would have had them in their regular clothes, a normal outfit that Poppy would wear, not this disco outfit because that doesn't even have anything to do with New Orleans. But anyways, so they would have been in their regular clothes, and then they would have stumbled upon this booth in the montage, and it would have had the wigs, but it also would have had like really crazy like disco costumes or something similar to like what she's wearing, but like crazy like disco costumes. And so then she would have lifted it up to Alex and been like, come on, theme matters. And he's like, no. And she's like, theme matters. And so then we cut to them and they're in the outfits and she has the wig on, right? And so then whenever they're talking to the newlyweds and they're role playing and she tells them that Alex was undercover as a professional dancer, if he's wearing like a disco outfit, I think that makes it so much funnier, especially if after that they both get up and go do a dance and they're both like dressed in like these crazy costumes. That's so funny. In that moment, whenever Poppy turns to Alex and she's like, let's give the people what they want, I think it would have been even funnier if, referring back to the inside joke, she would have turned to Alex and he's like, no, and then she whispers to him, but Alex, theme matters. And then she gets up and she starts dancing and playing the music. I think that would have been so funny, and it would have incorporated the inside joke that we had been referencing on this trip. My next complaint with this film is that it just all felt too rushed, and I get it. Like, it's a film, it's a completely different structure than a book. Like, you're going to have to cut stuff out. Like, that's just how it's gonna have to work. But, like, I don't know, it felt so like watered down. Like, I've seen some people online say that they think this should have been a limited series because it was so rushed. And when I first read that, I was kind of like, I don't know. But then I remembered this other limited series called One Day. If y'all have not watched this series on Netflix, you gotta tap in. Like, you've got to watch it. And basically, it follows this, like, a similar premise of these two friends who have been friends for, like, 10 years, who are clearly in love with each other, but they stay friends. Once I remembered One Day, I was like, wait a minute. Maybe People We Meet on Vacation should have been a limited series, because One Day was actually a film. Well, it was a book. It started out as a book, and then it was adapted into a film in 2011. And then it was adapted into the limited series on Netflix in 2024. And when I was watching the series on Netflix in 2024, when I got to the ending, I said, wait a minute. I feel like I've seen this before. And then I remembered I had seen it before. I had watched the film before, but I had literally completely forgotten about it. And so then after I watched the series, because I loved it so much, I said, let me go back to the film and rewatch it. And I rewatched the film and I said, oh, that's why I didn't remember it, because it wasn't good. Similar to People We Meet on Vacation, it was so rushed because they had to fit this 10-year-long friendship into one film. Everything was so rushed, and so it didn't work. It just didn't work. But in the series, it's so good because you have so much more time with these characters. You really feel like you get to know them over the span of 10 years. And you really just feel like they're so deeply in love with each other. And then the ending of the series is so much more impactful because you feel like you've been with them for 10 years. And also the series is so good because it explores all these other themes of growing up and navigating your 20s. And so I really do believe that People We Meet on Vacation might be better as a limited series like One Day, because then we could really get to see Alex and Poppy's friendship and make it feel like it's been over the span of 10 years, but also because we would have more time, we could explore other themes. Like, we could really explore the theme of Poppy trying to figure out what she wants to do with her career and what she wants to do with her life and what her new purpose is. Yeah, let me know what you think. Do you think People We Meet on Vacation would have done better as a limited series? Let me know. And my last biggest issue with this film is just the lack of yearning. Like, I just didn't feel, specifically from Alex's end, I just wanted to see the yearning. And this might be a hot take, but I blame the lack of yearning on hiring a male director. What are we doing? Like, if we have a romance book written by a woman for a predominantly female audience, can we, for the love of God, hire a female director? I'm like, it's pissing me off because I did another video talking about the To All the Boys I've Loved Before series and comparing the books to the films. And the first book and the first film was so good because they had a female director and then they switched directors to a man. And the film started to go down. Because, that's pretty much all of my thoughts on the book versus the film. This book is very near and dear to my heart. I love it so much, and to me it's just different. This film and the book are not the same thing. Not my Roderick, not my People We Meet on Vacations. I think maybe collectively we should consider to pull a One Day and in 10 years try and readapt this book into a limited series. So if you're with me, like, we'll get on that. And my last thing I'll say is that I know they are planning to adapt more Emily Henry books. I think the one that's next is Beach Read, if I'm not mistaken. And all I want to say is, like, for the love of God, please stay away from book lovers. Like, please, like, if you're listening and you're a part of the Emily Henry adaptations that are happening, like, please stay away from book lovers. That's all I ask. Like, please, just don't touch it. Just leave it. Leave book lovers alone for the love of God, please. Please. Like, and if you are gonna make it, like, please, like, I can write you a script right now. I can write you a pitch deck. Like, I can tell you what the readers want to see. I please, like, I'll do it for free. You don't even have to pay me. Like, I will give you free reader perspective. Like, I just want it to be good. But yeah, thanks for listening to me ramble about this film and this book. I want to hear your thoughts, so comment down below, what did you think about this book adaptation? Did you like the film? Had you watched the film without reading the book? Have you read the book and watched the film? And like, what are your thoughts? Maybe you completely disagree with me and you love the film. Maybe that's what you're feeling. Like, let me know. Yeah, thank you for watching. If you're still here, please let me know if you have any other film and book comparisons you would want me to do. And yeah, thanks for hanging out with me. Bye.